tomorrow we will see the Chicago Bulls play their very first game of the 2022-23 season. So in this video, what I want to do with you guys is kind of talk about what to expect from the Chicago Bulls regular season. Just the bare bones, most simplest form of what to expect. No overreactions, just truly what is most likely to occur for the Chicago Bulls in this season. So, if this is something you enjoy, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me, and it helps me a tremendous amount in trying to expand this channel as much as I can. But let's not waste any more of your time. Let's go ahead and get right into this. The things that we should expect from the Chicago Bulls regular season. So, first things first I want to talk about is the start of the season. Obviously, that's, what's right in front of us. Tomorrow should be game one if this video is uploaded when I expect it to be. And what I'm expecting from the beginning of the season is going to be a slow start to the year. Last year, we saw the Chicago Bulls start on fire, winning 13 of their first 20 games. I think they won 7 of their first 10. They were looking extremely good early season last year. But this year, on the other hand, we're seeing a lot tougher of an early schedule, as well as the fact that the Bulls are going to be missing their starting point guard in Lonzo Ball. And although Ayo Dosunmu, who is likely going to be the starter as he was in the preseason, is a very viable option and honestly a very good starting point guard, it's still not quite Lonzo. And even if Ayo plays at a great level and somehow outperforms Lonzo, having Lonzo on this team is just more depth. Whether it's Ayo on the bench or Lonzo on the bench somehow, that's still more depth that can get you more points off of the bench and be able to move the ball more consistently with more options. That's only good things can come from Lonzo's return. But without Lonzo, the Bulls might start the season a little bit slow. But not only because of Lonzo being gone do I think they're going to start slow, but 8 of the first 14 games for the Chicago Bulls are going to be against teams that made it into the playoffs last year. And I'm not talking about people that made it in the play-ins. I'm talking about only the teams that made it into the playoffs, the top 8 teams. 8 of the Bulls' first 14 games, over half of their first 14 games are against playoff teams. And I also believe that over half of their first 20 games are against playoff teams. I think that's like 11 of 20 is against playoff teams. So by far, it's not going to be an easy start to the year. Now, that could be a good thing because when the team is fully healthy, that means that the schedule will be lighter on the back end. But still, early on is when you can get a flow going, when you can get the team together and get some confidence behind you and get going throughout the rest of the year. And that's what we saw last year for the Bulls. And truly, the Bulls, even with a pretty solid preseason, they won 3 of 4 games, and maybe that gives you some confidence starting into the season. But with so many tough teams early on in this year, I could truly see the Bulls likely starting the first quarter of the year somewhere around that 500 range. Maybe a little bit above, maybe right at 500, maybe a little bit below. But, that's not always a bad thing. Truly, yes, a rough start to the season can turn a lot of heads and make people think, oh, you're really not a contender. But let's stop for a second. Last year, what did we see? The Boston Celtics were playing extremely poor early on. I mean, they were below 500 entering the new year, or right at 500 entering the new year, and they made it to the finals. So truly, the beginning of the year, especially the first 20, is not that huge of a factor long term, as long as you can get it going early on, prove point from the Boston Celtics, and I think the Bulls can do something similar. Maybe a slow start to the year, sitting right around 500 through the first 20, 30 games, but they're going to find a way to get going later on in the year. Now, the next thing I want to talk about here is going to be that I honestly think the Bulls will have an explosive offense. With so many players that can score for this team, you have plenty of capabilities to put up high numbers at a consistent level. Starting-wise, you have DeMar DeRozan, who can clearly score based on last year's stats. Zach LaVine, who I think was a little bit slower last year than the year prior, but I think is going to get back into it and be scoring somewhere around that 25 to 30 range. I think DeMar's going to be in that 25 to 30 range. I think Vooch can get back to that 20 range. There's 60 points from your big three on a consistent level. You bring in Lonzo Ball, who's going to average somewhere around 12. You got guys on the bench like Kobe White, who averaged 13 last year, and plenty of other options here and there that can pick up points for you. There is just 5 players that I listed right there, and that's already getting you to about 80-90 range just from 5 players. And, the rest of the bench in Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, Javonte Green, Goran Dragic, Andre Drummond, all these guys can manage to, group together another 30, 40 points for this team, which could be enough to get this offense to be one of the top in the league. So last year, the league average for points was right around 110. I think it might have been like 110.4 or something like that. And the Bulls landed at 13th in the league in scoring offense with 111 points. Now, this year, with all those guys, as mentioned, and, Zach and DeMar, who were just all-stars, Vooch, who I honestly think can be an all-star again this year, and all those other pieces, I think that, this bench and this starting five and all this depth can bring them into a top 10 scoring. Now, last year, like I said, 111 was 13th in the league. And you add another point or two average to that 113, you're in the top 10 already. But I honestly think that with how well this offense is built, and if they play at least at expectations, and just right around expectations, and I don't even think there's a lot of high expectations for this team, so it's not too crazy to say that they can play at that level of expectations. This team definitely could be in that 115-ish range of offensive scoring. And, that's definitely a good thing because that's going to lead to more games won. But I think this defense might actually find a way to get it rolling, especially with Lonzo returns. I think they'd be in the top half of the league at least defensively. And a top 10 offense is only going to lead to better things for this team. Now, the next thing and kind of the final thing here about what I expect from the Chicago Bulls this season is this team is going to have a lot of fight in them. After clawing their way to the top seed last year around mid-season, before they were falling back down to the 6th seed, the team showed a lot of fight to stay in the playoffs and not fall in the play-in. And, honestly, they made the Bucks series pretty, a lot more competitive than I think a lot of people expected. Even though it didn't end up being close in the final series outlook of things. It wasn't 4-3 in a game 7 or anything like that. But for the most part, a lot of those games felt really close up until the end there. Especially game 1, game 2, and I think even game 3 was pretty close. Now the last two, not so much, but it was a very competitive series. And this team, although we're counted out a lot throughout the entire year, especially in that playoffs, they were still able to keep working and trying to win these games and stay in these games long term. Now, this offseason, we saw a lot of help around the edges of this team. You bring in Goran Dragic, who's a shooter and is pretty serviceable on defense. Patrick Williams goes out and practices with DeMar DeRozan pretty much the whole offseason. Hopefully that can lead to good things on offense when he's already solid on defense. You bring in Andre Drummond, who is one of the best rebounders in the entire league. Looks like he added a three-point shot too, which, great news for the Bulls. And you also bring in Dalen Terry in the draft, another guard who can, be gritty for you, go get those tough rebounds, but can also score and pass for you at a pretty, high level. Definitely not elite level. And yes, he's a rookie. We're comparing this to college and a little bit of, preseason and summer league and all that stuff. But he looks like he's a little bit above average in most of those aspects. So they clean up the edges a little bit, make this team look a little bit better, improve the bench, all this stuff. And, I think that can only lead to good things. With those additions, as well as what this team already had, with so many players who will be willing to do the little things on offense and defense, this team won't be giving up on very many games. Even if the score is 20 points, they're down 20 points entering the fourth. I think, some teams prior, especially the Bulls themselves, might have gave up and maybe not went out full force in that fourth quarter if they're down 20, but I think this team, how it's built, has what it takes and is willing to do what it takes to get those games close, even when they're down 20 or 30 entering that fourth quarter. I think they have enough of what it takes. Offensively, you have Lonzo Ball, Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, Vucevic, all those guys who are willing to give up their own shots and, give better opportunity shots and more open shots to other teammates. Even Vooch, who is a center and is not a pass-heavy center. Last year, we saw him be more pass-heavy. He wasn't getting a lot of shots. He was finding the open man. And with so many guys, even the other guys I didn't mention, like Zach and DeMar, have gotten better at it. If they don't have a shot, and it's not like close to the end shot clock or something like that, they will wait and let the play progress and find the open man. And that's only going to lead to good things and being willing to say, hey, maybe I don't have the right shot, let's give it to somebody else. But, on defense, you also have Ayo Dosunmu, again, Caruso, Dalen Terry, Williams, Lonzo, all these guys that, they're willing to grind it out and work to get the rock back and dive for the ball and tip it out and, you even tip it to somebody else or block the shot, doesn't matter. They will go and use their body in ways that some other players might not be willing to get the team the ball back and slow down the other team's scoring offense, which again is only going to lead to better things. And on the rebounding side of things, you have Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond, who are both, even if they don't have the size or maybe they're not as great as rebounders. I mean, Drummond is a phenomenal rebounder, but Vuce, maybe he's not the best rebounder compared to some of these other centers. They're still going to do everything they can to go get that rebound, which is, going to be good for this team. Get some second chance points, get, the ball away from the other team. Just a lot of guys that are on this team that are willing to do these small things. Pay attention to the small details. Do every little thing they can to win the games. And with so many of those players that are willing to do that and get involved in all the things that maybe don't directly correlate to scoring but can lead to it, like maybe not shooting the ball itself, but they're willing to do the things that will lead to the scoring, they could stay in games that most teams maybe wouldn't be able to and potentially blow out teams that they weren't expected to because they're willing to do all these small little details. And that's what I expect this team to do, is have a lot of fight in them and be willing to do the small things to grind it out and to win games or just keep it close when maybe it didn't look like it was going to be in the first place. But what are your guys' thoughts? I know this was a little bit shorter of a video, only 3 main details, but there is a lot of expectations entering this season for the Bulls, and I think for the most part, a lot of the league and a lot of fan bases, even Bulls fans, have started to count the Bulls out. And I don't think that they're as bad as some people like to think. I did do my overreactions or really high predictions in a separate video. If you want to go check that out, feel free to. But this is just, the base expectations that I think they can easily accomplish, and they're not too far out there. But what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. Truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope it taught something today. Hope it made you smile. Hope it made you laugh. Something's really important to me. Affects me most of the day in a great way, because every single day can be a great day if you all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.
But something deep inside